What's going on? Hi, everyone. This is APO Sports. Interesting game where the Fever were kind of in the game for, you know, I guess the first half, and then things fell off. The wheels fell off. Um, it's hard to blame the refs, but, the refs were terrible, causing Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever coaching staff to kind of waste or spend their two challenges early on in the game and then not being able to use them anymore. And the interesting thing is, like, okay, so you challenge because the refs call the play wrong, and then you win because they they suck at their job, and then you do another challenge because again they couldn't do their job, and now the team gets penalized. So I'm sorry, you can't call us out in us doing a bad job anymore. And it's interesting how that works because um in no other place, like nowhere else in the world does things work out that way, right? So if someone makes a mistake once, you give them a warning. If someone makes a mistake the second time, you kind of at the point where you have to do some sort of counseling. And then if someone does a bad job the third time, you kind of fire them, right? Or you're like, all right, that's it. I mean, that's strike three. But in the WNBA in sports, because it's not just the WNBA, it's also, in football and in the NBA, you can't you don't have a chance to call them out on a third time. It's like, well, you just got to live with us making mistakes for the rest of the game, and that's just silly. And I don't know what the league can do. And the WNBA is it's pretty bad. Like, and I've complained, and I think everybody complains about officiating in the NFL, about officiating in the NBA, but the WNBA is just egregious as far as the calls that they make constantly. So I really don't know. But as far as everything else, I the Fever got what they got, and there's not much else that can be done about that. The Fever are who they are. They got who they got. Everyone's dropping like flies. Of course, the biggest hit being Caitlin Clark, and then you go down the line with Sophie, Ari McDonald, Damaris Dantas that went down with apparent concussion. Not that Dantas was going to do much to help out the team. As I said, the Fever are who they are. They got the players that they got. Everybody went down in the team. So, I've been a bit critical of the newcomers coming in, like Odyssey Sims and Aerial Powers and everything like that. And it's not a criticize on them or a critique on them necessarily. They're the players who they are, right? We can't expect Sims to come in and be a different player that she's been for her career. Same thing with Aerial Powers. We can't ask her to be something or someone other than Aerial Powers. So it's just hard, right? You've got to pick up the players that you need to pick up, and then they'll do what they can to contribute, and that's what it is. I mean, I'm surprised that for some games they were able to show some promise, but in this game it was evident how the pieces don't necessarily fit together. Um, they still don't have an identity because they haven't been able to establish one. Um, I continue to believe that Aaliyah Boston is the Fever's best player, but they just don't even know how to get her involved. Aaliyah Boston she needs to do a better job at inserting herself. I think she's too passive. She's too nice. So I don't know how she's going to come out of that. I think she's more worried about being liked than she is about making sure that, you know, she's telling people, yo, I'm the best player on this team. So instead, they go through a different player who everyone believes is the best player, and then okay, so that's it. That's who you got. Okay, so I just want to go over some stats real quick, just to for this post game. We're not gonna go too in depth with this, at least not with the basketball reference piece. We're gonna get into the chessboard basketball because I think we can actually extract a lot more. We tend to just say, oh, this player scored this many points, this player scored this many points, and that's how basic our conversation. It's just like everything else in life. I mean, us as humans, we just everything's on surface level, nothing in depth. So we're gonna try to go a little bit more in depth because this traditional stats, I'm just not down with them. I mean, one of the players most prolific scorers in the history of the NBA was Carmelo Anthony. Never made an NBA Finals, and this is not like a hit on Carmelo. I loved his game. He's just not a winner. But anyways, here, if you look at the line score, the Fever scoring 12 points in the second quarter, that's really bad. I mean, 12 points and allowing 22, but scoring only 12, it's bad. And as far as everything else, I mean, they allowed 18, 22, 18, 22. So, defensively, yeah, they allowed 80 points, which is a lot, but it wasn't like they had an outrageous quarter where the dream just went off. The Fever their offense, they just weren't scoring, but we'll see why. I mean, they had an outrageous amount of bad possessions, and that's just not gonna get the job done. So here, as we see, there's really not a lot, really not a lot of point production. And then the point production that did happen inefficiently, ineffectively. Kelsey Mitchell was able to get, because she only scored 1 3, but she was able to get to the line 9 times. That helps, when you score 8 points. I mean, Boston had 8, but give her 8 more free throws, that's 16. But anyways, she was able to get to the line, and she's good at getting to the line. So yeah, outside of the 27 points by Mitchell, then you only have 10 by Sims, which didn't come by very efficiently, 8 by Boston, or 9 by Hall, which, with 3 of 13 shooting. So yeah, it's 9 points, but you had to shoot 13 times. Howard, 5 points, although you shouldn't really rely on her to score much. And the bench didn't give you anything, right? Powers 5 and Bree Hall for really just 5 points by Powers, because really those Bree Hall points came in garbage time. So can't really score those. So this is the extent of which I'm going to get to the box score. Now, I do want to go over this because, so this is a player by player analysis of chessboard basketball. So you tell me, yes, Aaliyah Boston had a bad game. She only scored 8 points, whatever. But look at this. I think this is important to visualize. She was only really involved in 12 out of 79 possessions. What do I mean by involved? So, like, usage rate, in the advanced statistic of usage rate determines possessions that ended with a particular player, whether by taking a shot or committing a turnover. Here is more about, yes, possessions that ended with a particular player with a turnover, taking a shot, or trying to create for another teammate. That only happened 12 times out of 79. So if you tell me that Boston is supposed to be one of your 2 best players, and in my opinion, she is your best player, 12 out of 79. Now, yes, you can say, well, the roster, we don't have people to give her the ball. We have excuses for days. Now, we're at this point, playoffs, and that the team does not go to Boston. Now, I also say that a lot of this is on Aaliyah Boston, in that she's too passive, she's too nice. I think she's too friendly. She doesn't do much to insert herself and say, this is me, give me the ball. I need to have the ball in my hands. Nothing, right? She does not do that. So 12 out of 79. And look, I mean, most of the possessions that she was involved in, she had 1 bad possession, 2 marginal, and the rest were good or great. So in my opinion, you have to continue to whatever, live or die through Aaliyah Boston. I don't care what the result, it is what it is. She needs to be involved at least, I don't know, a quarter. To me, half of the possessions should go. I mean, if we were to evaluate the Lakers, half the possessions, if not more, are going to end up with Luka either trying to create for someone or taking the shot. Now, people are like, some people have told me, Aaliyah, Boston is not Allen Iverson. She's not going to ISO or all these different things. Okay, well, if we look at Denver with the Nuggets, how many possessions are going to go or, finish with Jokic either shooting or creating for someone else? A pretty big chunk. Now, people say, well, she's not Jokic. Okay, well, that's your opinion. I think she is the closest thing in the WNBA to Nikola Jokic. So, but whatever, that's neither here or there. The analysis here is that only 12 out of those 79 possessions went through Aaliyah Boston. Out of those 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, so 8 of 12 were either good or great possessions. She just wasn't gone. They didn't go to her enough, or she didn't take over enough. However we want to spin it, either she didn't insert herself enough, or the team didn't go to her enough. The result is the same: 12 possessions out of the 79. That's all we have. Kelsey Mitchell, so a lot more involvement. But here, listen, this is not at all a moment for me to criticize Kelsey Mitchell. She did everything that she could. She was involved, and for the most part, it was good results, right? She only had two bad possessions. The marginal, mostly, it's that she missed, right? Okay, so she missed a mid-range shot, or she missed a layup, or she missed a three-point shot. It is what it is, right? Or she set someone else up that they couldn't finish. You live with those. I mean, you can live with marginal and good, right? But bad and horrendous, you have to eliminate 100%. And she did a good job. Out of the 25, she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 out of the 79 were either good or great possessions. And that's really good. And only 2 bad. So really, the bad possessions were not at all due to Kelsey Mitchell doing anything wrong. If anything, it's all positive. So kudos to Kelsey Mitchell. She had an amazing game, really good game. Kept the team afloat for most of it. She scored. She was aggressive. If no one's going to be aggressive, so if Boston can't be aggressive, then Kelsey Mitchell has to be aggressive, and we can live and die with that. Now Howard. So Howard, okay, so 11 out of 79 possessions, but look at how many possessions she was responsible as far as bad possessions. And this all happened like in a string, possession 42, 48, 53, 55, 65. Like when she just decides to throw away the ball, she's going to do it. And, these here, 3, 4, were all live ball turnovers. So a live ball turnover, a live ball turnover, live ball turnover, live ball turnover. She's lucky that the Dream, and the Dream had a really bad offensive game too, but she's lucky that the Dream did not convert those into points. But she's just giving it away and running away. And then this was a dead ball turnover, offensive foul. I mean, when you have 11 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possessions out of those 11 are bad, and then only 3 out of 11 are either good or great, that's not very good contribution by Howard. Same thing here a little bit with Lexi Hall, but with Lexi Hall, we have to provide a little bit of context because she was definitely put in a lot of situations in which she had to shoot the ball with the shot clock or the game clock expiring. She was just continuously put in those situations, so she had to take some shots. And, in chessboard basketball, she's a bishop, meaning that she starts with 3 points, right? She's got 3 points to spare. So when she takes and misses a mid-range shot, because it's considered to be a low-value shot, meaning that it's difficult and you don't get a lot for your buck. So missing a mid-range is -5. So a lot of these -2s is missing a mid-range. -2, missing a mid-range. -2, missing a mid-range. -2, another -2 here, missing a mid range. So, and that's the other thing. Lexi takes lots of mid range shots. So if she doesn't hit them, that's -2 on her, which is going to be a bad possession because missing a mid range is just high risk, low reward, meaning that it's high degree, difficult shot for only 2 points. That's the problem with the mid range. So, but it's not really turnovers. Now, this one was a live ball turnover that led to a bucket, so that's fine. These 0 are just she either missed a 3 or she missed a layup or something like that, right? So, fine. But missing mid ranges, that's really bad. So -3, this is probably a dead ball turnover. Which offensive foul, which it was the offensive foul that she ran into Ryan Howard, which shouldn't have been an offensive foul. They're reviewing for flagrant, but the offensive fouls are not reviewable. So just terrible. And then this -5 was a live ball turnover. So out of the 17, she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were bad or horrendous. And then out of those 17, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were either good or great. So again, not a good showing by Lexi. So the good thing with Lexi Hall is that you always know what she's gonna bring as far as energy, as far as hustle. Now, you don't know if she's gonna come in hitting shots or not. So when she's coming in hitting shots, Fever likely win. But when she's not, it's difficult. But at least you get good defender Lexi always. She's always that's something that she's always gonna provide. You're never going to question that. But offensively, you don't know. So that's the only thing with Lexi. Sims is just tons of marginal and bad. I just think that she takes too many bad shots and makes too many bad decisions. And that's kind of what hurts because she just goes into the paint against the teeth of the against multiple defenders, the teeth of the defense. She was shooting shots over Jones, over like just by herself, ISOing, penetrating to the paint, shooting interior shots over Griner, over Jones, over multiple defenders. Now she hit like 2 or 3, but they're not high percentage shots. You can't, the more you do that, the more low percentage shots and low value shots you're going to take. So out of 16, she really only had 2 good possessions. And then 16 of 79. So Sims had a lot more involvement than Boston. Boston was 12 of 79. So I don't know. And then Powers. So Powers, again, if you have 8 of 79, and out of those 8, 4 are bad, and only 1 is good, then that's not good. It's just a lot of, again, misses bad 3-point shot. No ball movement, just deciding to shoot it. -3, dead ball turnover. -10, a live ball turnover that led to a basket. This one is bad driving layup. It's just, I remember that. It was just against multiple defenders, no ball movement. It just seems like a constant where some of these players, and again, like I said before, we're not trying to ask Petty or Powers or Sims to be who they're not. This is who they are. But I think if we have to come up with a reason as to why some of these players were free agents, I think decision making is the biggest culprit because it cost you. Like a bad decision with a low value shot on one end, it'll cost you on the other. So I mean, you can live with good decisions, or at the very least, having your queens and rooks be the ones who are mostly involved and taking those difficult shots or those bad decisions. As long as it's Boston and Mitchell, great. But these other players, nah, there's no way. So I don't know. This was a really bad offensive, and then Petty, all her possessions were bad. This is a missed an interior shot, missed a bad driving layup against multiple defenders, and then a live ball turnover. And then Turner, yep, most of them were bad as well. So I mean, when your cast is not giving you anything, so outside of Boston and Mitchell, so these are the ones that you look at their charts and you're like, oh, these are pretty good charts. When you look at Howard's or Lexi's or Sims or Powers or Petty. Those are pretty bad charts. So yeah, I mean, it was a winnable game, but I just think you need Mitchell and Boston involvement. It doesn't matter. Just continue to force things to Aaliyah Boston and to Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, if you're going to lose and go home on game 2, go home with your heavy hitters. That's what I'm saying. Keep Sims under control, keep Powers under control, keep who else? Sims and Powers mostly, and Howard, I guess. Howard, Sims, and Powers. If you can keep them under control so that you get more involvement from Boston and Mitchell, then do that, is my opinion. Now, Boston should have more than, I'm hoping that next game, Boston gets more than 12 possessions as far as shooting and creating for others with possessions ending. But we can only see. But anyways, this was the analysis that I wanted to share with you guys from Chessboard Basketball and some of the basketball reference stuff. We'll see what happens game 2, and that's it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.